We're ready to get started. Yeah. Okay. We ready to get started? Yeah. Okay, we'll go. Yeah. I don't see anybody online that's raising red flags, so we'll kick it off. Thanks y'all for joining. I legitimately am very excited to see so many people in here. I did not expect this. This is far more people than I thought would show up to an 8 a.m. session on day one. So like good for you all. Like first off, way to go, y'all. So very excited for that. My name is AJ. Oh, that's the agenda. We'll go back to the agenda in just a second. My name's AJ. I work with Essential Education. I'm an implementation specialist there. I started off as a high school teacher in Oklahoma City, working with students with special needs, teaching them math. And I started actually. My first semester was doing language arts, and I'm not a language arts teacher. It's just that was the worst. I struggled, and math is a much more solid natural fit. So that's what I did. I left there and in 2015 started in adult education at a community college. And I walked in and they said, we have like 1,500 people on our waiting list and we have like 1,000 seats of essential ed. So just make that problem go away. And I was like, okay. I just came out of grad school. I was like, this will work. We'll talk about the trials and the things that did and didn't work today. But anyways, that's been my experience, is just using essential ed in the classroom at a distance. Most of my students were distance ed students. Some of them were blended learning students. They would come for some classes. Maybe they came for math and they would do the other subjects online and things like that. But it really was just figuring out, how do I build a distance ed program? How do I build an online program? So that was my experience before going to work for the state agency for career tech, where I met Jennifer, and now I work at Essential Ed. So Jennifer, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Jennifer Wernberg. I have been in education 27 years. I started out as an elementary education teacher for 15 years, and then I went to work for our State Department of Ed very briefly. Then I went to work for Career Tech and met AJ and wonderful other people, which led me then to Pioneer Technology Center, where I have the adult education program. I'm the coordinator, and this is my 4th year. Loving it. I love what I get to do. So this has been exciting for me to learn. I feel like I've gone through almost every age group in my career. And so now I'm working with a lot of 16, 17-year-olds, which is interesting. I see some heads shaking. Yes. And then, of course, my adults. So I really do enjoy it. And we love Essential Ed in our program. And I hope I can explain how we use it. And I hope it helps you. Again, my 4th year, so I'm always learning. How do we make this better? And I think since COVID, we just constantly are trying to rethink, how do we include people? How do we include people? How do we make this work? Because I have so many students that come in and go, I just want to work from home. I don't want to be here. I'm like, okay, so how do we make this work? So I think that's what we're here to talk about. And I'm excited to be able to help AJ in this process.
Thanks, Jen. So I'll jump back up here to the agenda slide, but just for our purposes. Oh yeah, like there's people on here. I hate like standing here at the podium, but there are people that are like, I think there's only 4. There's a lot more of you, so maybe I'll come out there. No, yeah, this is not a this is not a sales pitchy thing. This isn't an essential ed presentation. My goal, my hope is really this will be a lot more discussion based, that you all will share your experience using an online product, getting students to be self-directed, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And honestly, that was the genesis of this, was knowing Jen and her experience at an adult ed program that is rural in Oklahoma, but is also kind of like a hub for a lot of other rural communities. And so she kind of gets to see a little bit of what both sides of the coin look like. And so she did a real 180 with the program when she joined, to have students be self-directed. And I thought, my gosh, like I get that question every single day. Someone says, well, I just don't know how to use your product. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Well, so she's found a way to get people to do things self-direct. And I thought, I think there's people out there that want to hear that. So I want to hear what your experience is. Like I said, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what you've tried, what your questions are, the things that you want to try, but you don't know how to get started. I don't want this to be a death by PowerPoint, okay? Because there's only like 10 slides, so it won't be that grueling of a death. Anyways, so as far as our agenda goes, we're going to start off by just talking about kind of vision, right? Doing a little bit of planning on your part. What do you want your program to look like? What are the things that you want to change, right? What are the important things that you see? Oof, this is a hindrance. This is a barrier for us. Or this is where I want us to get to. So we're going to try and connect some of those dots, all right? Going to share a lot of Jen's experience in that process of connecting those dots. We're going to talk about the culture of your program. I think we've been having conversation for 4 years, 3.5 years now that I've been with Essential Ed, and I feel like every single time culture is part of our conversation, changing the culture that was at that program. That was a real key part of what has made this to be more successful. So we're going to talk a lot about what that looks like today. Your team, right? Who's helping you in this mission? So we're going to examine that, who you should keep, and who you should maybe what promote outside, promote elsewhere, right? Yeah, I don't know. Is that the terminology? But then again, want to examine things that what's changed for her specific program, and for those of you with experience, I really hope you'll chime in. What has changed in your experience over the last couple of years? What hasn't changed? What do we want to see happen next? And then I added some reflective questions at the end to wrestle with that. So that's kind of our plan today. That's where we're going to head today. I'll put this well before we get to there. I just give me a thumbs up if you use Essential Ed in your program. Give me a thumbs up if you use Essential Ed in your program. Okay. What about if you just use any kind of self-paced program, whether it's Essential Ed, a competitor, a workbook, but some kind of self-paced, right? Okay. Just let me know if you're like, we're still mostly whole group instruction, a teacher leads the classroom. Is that most of your program? Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And then just everything else, right? Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And then who in here is the primary role that you fill is instructor or lead instructor? Who in here is that? Okay. And who in here primarily fills more of an admin role? Okay. And then who has their feet in both worlds pretty equally? You're like, I'm a one-man show. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have other roles in here? Career navigators or anybody else? Yeah. Anything we've not covered? Students? Do we have any students in here? No. Okay. Yeah. I'm a lifelong learner. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. That's good. That's good. All right. So let's start off by talking about just kind of vision and where you're headed with your program, right? So we go back to this quote often on our team. This, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. So having intentional roadmap driving you somewhere, having some idea of what you plan to come out with. So let's just talk openly, if you will. How do you define success for these categories? Your students, your instructors, your program. If I walked into your program today and I said, what does success look like for your students? I think most of us can answer that. I'm going to ask you in just a second. And what about for your instructors? Could you answer that one as well? So I don't know, Jen, do you want to kick us off by talking about just what conversations about success have looked like with regard to those three categories? If the online people want to hear.
Okay. Okay. So success for our students, it really is depending on the student. We have some that the fact that they're enrolling in our program, it speaks a lot to where they are in their lives and they've made that step. And then when I took this job on 4 years ago, not knowing anything about adult ed, this was totally jump in and just go. But I'm one of those people like you, learner. I've got to figure this out. I'm going to dive right in. So we were just like, we need graduates. We're going to get graduates. And that a lot of the goals that we have for making, the pre-test, 40 hours post-test, sometimes we forgo that. Just like, okay, no, this person needs to get it done. They need to get out the door. They need to get a job. So we had that as more of a focus when we started. And then now that we can have the goal of they pass one test and you've made a gain, that's huge. That is so huge, but it's still a struggle for some of our students. And I talk about this a lot with my students. They pass a test or they do something great and they sabotage themselves. Yeah. And so we constantly have conversations with them about, okay, we know you can do this. Trust us. We're here to cheer you on. We're here to support you. We're going to guide you to that next step. And so success for our students, it's so many levels, so many levels. But it's going to go into what we're going to talk about in a minute is building those relationships. When you know that, you know where this student is, where they're going, makes all the difference. When they share with us, well, I need to get a better job. Okay, so then we take that information and we cultivate that when we're talking to them. How do we get you to that point? What can we do for you? I really feel like my teachers are more counselors in a sense than teachers most of the time. And then, so to me, the success for students, it's just levels upon levels upon levels. It just depends on the student. Instructors, for my instructors, when I stepped into this role, the person who had it before me, great lady, I think the world of her. The way she had it structured, it was very intense. You didn't talk, you didn't do anything. You sat down. It was old school to the max. And I was learning, so I'd come in and I'd walk around, and she did not like me in there. And so I'd ask a lot of questions because I wanted to learn, not to judge. And the straw that broke the camel's back was I told a student, if you listen to music and that's how you learn, you can have your earbuds in, just I don't want to hear your music, right? I'm a firm believer in learning styles. But I also told the student, but if we see you're not making progress, we're going to have that conversation with you so that we can make those right choices. Oh, that just did it. And she left. And so I had to, within 3 months of taking the job, I had to figure out, okay, I got to do this and I'm on the hook and let's get this going. So I feel like the shift was my instructors felt like they had more autonomy after that. They had the ability to just have the conversations with the students and work one-on-one with them, which is what they wanted to do. And that's why I think you asked me to talk about this, because all of a sudden we went from a very controlled environment where people walked in, they sat down, they didn't talk, they didn't do anything except be at their computer, to now they come in, we have a lot of conversations one-on-one, we have a lot of small group interaction. It is geared to the student, and that's how we run it. Now, we're not a big program. I say that we have an average of 200 students. And you know what I mean by that is there could be a bunch that just walked in the door and said hi, and then I never saw them again. So, but 200 students. So when we have 20 people in the room, it's a great day. We're on fire. We're just thinking this is awesome. But we have another key point of our success is if they're communicating with us. And so, is anybody else in here from Oklahoma? No. Okay. Oklahoma has this new law that it is just, it's getting me. We are not allowed to communicate with our students who are under 18 unless we are communicating with their parents as well. And if you have one conversation, you have that too? Yeah. Yeah. And so if I have one conversation, I can lose my license. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can be sent home on administrative leave. They have to do an investigation, and then they decide, did I break any law? Well, I just said hello. Mm-hmm. They're considered adults, and I put that in air quotes, but I still want to follow all the rules to say I'm not breaking any rules. Okay, we're educators. We don't break rules. They're in adult education, but they're 16, 17. Yes, yes.
Student 16 or 17 is sitting in your classroom.
No, that's different. When they're in my classroom, I can talk to them, but through phone, email. Well, email's okay. Email's okay because you can see the path of the conversation. But text message, I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to talk to them on the phone. Anyway, it's a mess. But to me, communication is huge in what we do. We text a lot with our students, and I think they appreciate that because, you've got a life, right? And those students have a life, and they're just like, oh, I've got a job, I've got kids. But when we text them and we talk to them and say, hey, we believe in you, come back in, you're so close, that makes a huge difference. And our instructors see that as success. When the students are communicating, it's success. Good. Yes. I've heard band is really good. Band, I've heard that's a good one. Right? Band. Uh-huh. I've heard it's really good.
Talk to one individually, you just hit the chat button and you talk to just that student. Yeah. Or, as a group, and then you can just group students that just been all over doing science. You can group the science ones together, the math ones or whatever.
What was the name of this app?
Band. I know. I'm like, wish I could capture everything you just said into this because it is a good app.
You can just move them from the band and everybody else keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can use it like interchangeable. If you have multiple classes, you can.
And they can even share like photographs and things like that in there. That's right. We don't want to give them too many opportunities to share.
I make it where I have to approve you to come in anyway.
Right.
And then if you want to have a conversation outside, that's up to y'all.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot post at my part where I'm posting assignments and that I'm out this week and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That you can't post in because I can remove anything that they post, but at the same time, I don't allow them to post. They can respond to me, but not just go in there just putting all kinds of stuff.
Does it integrate with Google Classroom and other apps?
It probably does because I just use it on my phone to be honest, and it's just easier to contact them. You can send one message everybody gets, and then you can see if they read it.
Yeah,
that's my purpose.
Yeah.
You did not read it because
yes.
It shows who read.
Yeah. It's a good communication tool. Yes.
I put them in, but I don't normally put them in only if they ask.
And see, our school is an approved method right now. It's not banned. And so we're trying to get everybody over there, but I hate to dive into these little details, but my students don't always like to go into those kinds of things. So, yeah. So to say, hey, I need you to fill out a survey when you come in, they don't like to do that. And so to put them into these little pathways for them to communicate with me, it gets dicey sometimes. They don't trust, and I get it. So if they don't trust, I'm trying to just find the fastest, easiest way to communicate with them. So I guess success for our program is when they communicate with us. And our program, we're constantly talking about how do we hit those goals of making an EFL gain? How do we do all of that stuff? But I feel like our small community, we worry more about the students, not necessarily as much about the national or state goals. And maybe that's me coming from a very small background. I'm not thinking bigger. I don't know, but we worry more about our students and trying to have success for them because we look at every success as an opportunity for that person to be a taxpayer and to improve the economy and to make their lives better. And so that's what we look at. And our little community is Ponca City. We are in the northern part of Oklahoma. And it's interesting how many people we have that could use our service, and we're so small. So we're like we're probably top 10 in our state, but we're a very small town. So it's interesting the need that we have in the rural area of Oklahoma of how many people need to come in and get their diploma or need support to pass ACT, ASVAB, work keys, and those kinds of things that come in and ask for our services. ESL, we actually also, I'm kind of unique in Oklahoma. I have a corrections program. So I have a program in the county jail. And so we constantly have people in that program. So we,
You're like 3 programs.
yeah, I've learned a lot. So, but that's, I feel like I've blathered. I'm sorry. Success is different, I guess, for us. Yes, yes. I'm so glad we get to because that was a major thing to get that put on the laptops and they could get access to it. It took us a while to get there. And they won't let you do that. They're online. No, they're online. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're online. But that's all they get to go to. They can't do anything else. Yeah, and I guess okay, indulge me. I feel like that my group, there's that group, and I work with TANF. Does anybody else know about TANF? Okay. So to explain how to learn with my corrections group and my TANF group gets very interesting because they think if I read the question and I see the answer and I go back and I read the question and I see the answer, I'm going to learn. They do that a lot. And then they'll go through the sessions or the lessons and they'll start out with a 50% and then they'll get to 100% and they go, I got it. No, so we have to have a lot of difficult conversations. That's not how you're going to learn. If that was the case, you probably wouldn't be here. If you had that photographic memory, you would have felt better in high school. Yes.
So, everything is totally online, no classroom.
I do have a classroom. I guess I should have started with all that. Yeah.
We have another instructor at our campus does EDO, and she uses Essential Ed. And so we use, like some material, but she uses it more than I do. And I'm just trying to figure out like if we can incorporate it any kind of way. But I guess for what you're talking about, all of your stuff is pretty much online.
It is.
That's all of the instruction.
Not entirely. So when they come into the program, they have immediate access to the essential ed. We get them going with the practice test. We find out what they know, don't know. We tell them basically how this is set up is they're on an individual path, but have assistance almost around the clock because we're open 5 days a week. During the day, we're open 3 nights a week. I have an ESL class that meets twice a week. My corrections facility, because of my budget, I can only open it 3 days a week. So when they come in, they're on an individual path. But anytime they need assistance, that teacher is sitting with them one-on-one, and we do small group. The problem we have, and this is why when AJ asked me to do this, it kind of blows my mind to think about directing these students in a formal classroom setting, because I may have 10 people come in and they're all on a different level. And so for me to sit and think about how I structure this in a traditional classroom setting, I can't because of the different levels we have. So we just make sure they understand you got to ask questions. And we talk about in our orientation, success means communicating and asking questions. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know something, I need your help. And once we can develop that rapport and that relationship, makes all the difference in the world to get them to open up to us what they're struggling with, and then we work with them. And I have this one particular teacher, her name is Rebecca. If I could clone her and just give her out to all of you guys, she'd be the best gift ever. She has that ability to be so positive, but yet get to the core of what they need to talk about. And so they come in purposely when she's there because she has that ability to show respect. And that was the thing I guess I should have led with. My philosophy is when I started teaching, you were told basically students should respect you because you're an educator. That's what I was taught. But my philosophy is we're going to give respect to get respect. And so once I made that my mission, and this is how it's going to be, our entire program changed, in my opinion. The students came in and felt welcomed, felt accepted.
I know how some people listen to headphones.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing something, but how do you filter if they are listening for that purpose? Because I have students who have said that they work better that way.
Mhm.
I do a traditional class.
Mhm.
but I do give them very independent.
Right.
They will ask to do that, but I'm seeing you over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're not
Right.
doing it. So that's why, because I would hate to take it from them if it helps them, but at the same time, if I know that you're not doing it,
Yeah.
why would I allow you to? So what kind of lets you know when to allow and when not to allow?
It's based on their results of what they're working on. Are they being successful on that lesson? Are they, progressing? And then we have that difficult conversation of, I'm here for you, but what I'm seeing is you're not making the gains that we think you should make. And we talk about, I don't mean this disingenuine because it's not, but we talk about how smart they are because a lot of times they don't hear that. And so we say, we know you can do this, but the headphones might be holding you back just a little bit. So maybe you just try it for a little bit without it and see what happens. And I don't know about you guys, but my 16, 17-year-olds think that they can put that phone right there and listen to their favorite movie while they're doing it. And so I've been, I feel like the old teacher's coming back, and you put that in the corner and you put it face down. And so we have the awkward. It's not difficult. It's awkward, but it's like you put that phone away. So I've become a high school principal again, I feel like. So,
Build a culture of trust.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah,
Show them that I'm going to trust you, that you believe that your education is important.
yes,
And
Yeah.
so all you're really doing is kind of putting up the guardrails.
Yeah.
right? When you show me that what you're doing is watching this and not working, well, you're gonna, when they show that they're more interested in Netflix than they are their own lesson that day, they're just breaking trust. And so all you're doing is putting the guardrails back up on that. That's all. Yeah. Yeah.
And he will do 10 hours on a Saturday, and it's working the whole time, because you can go in and check. But I think he's doing what you're talking about, because he's made it most way through all the subjects, but he can't make progression on the tape.
Mm-hmm.
So how, is there a way in essential ed to, I don't know, to deal with the fact, to even know that that's what he's doing, he's just memorizing the answers?
So the truth will out. That stuff shows up in the report. So the question is, does essential ed do anything for students that are rinsing and repeating, right? Going through the same content over and over again. And then when we take them to a post test or practice test, they're not showing the improvements, right? That information will show up in reports. And there's one of our sales reps, his cheesy line is the teacher is our best feature. And it's really just to say that, like, if you treat essential ed like a teacher's assistant, then that's where it fits best. It's your teacher's assistant. If it runs the show and you never check in, then you're gonna find issues. And I'll talk more about yeah. Let's poll the audience. If you had a student who you think is just churning and you wanted to go look for that data, does anybody know where would you go look? Anybody know? To find out if that student is just churning through the material. Wow, how are they doing? It's just right. Yes. Does anybody know the name? It's my favorite report. If you've been on an AJ training, you know the name of it. It is called the student summary. And I always start and I say, y'all, I'm sorry. This thing is not sexy. It is a spreadsheet. It's not attractive. There's just lines of data, but it's the most important information, I think. Yes, go ahead. When the student completes those activities, it fills in this report. Yeah. So if you go run this report in Essential Ed, it's called Student Summary. It's just going to have a couple little windows that say like, do you want to run it for a class? Do you want to run it for a student? What's the time frame that you want to run it for? And then you hit, see the report, and it's going to give you a spreadsheet. No data is going to just populate on your screen. It's going to give you a spreadsheet. The data that shows up on that spreadsheet, I call it your grade book because it's everything the student turns in. And so if we're keeping our students accountable, if we're trying to reinforce, hey, I'm paying attention to your data, if we're trying to do what Jen is talking about, which is build relationships and show them, hey, I care about you, I care about your progress, the student summary is going to enable you to do that really well because it's going to show you what do they look at, how long did they spend on it, how many times have they attempted it, what was their score, and there'll be a date stamp as well. And so I'll never forget, I had been with Essential Ed, and if you've been on an AJ training, you've heard me tell this a time or two. I'm like 4 months I'd been, so I'm coming back to it. Yeah, kind of brushing off the cobwebs on how to use it. And I get this call from a teacher who just happened to be in Oklahoma that I knew. And she just goes, well, I just don't think your program works. I think it's stupid and it's not helping my student. And I'm 4 months in, so I go, okay, yes, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, okay, well, let's 'cause I didn't know. I'm like, I gotta be in this nice little box of, anyways. And I said, well, just tell me the problem. She goes, well, I've got a student. He spends lots of time on that program. He's flying through the material, and every time he takes a test, he bombs it. So I just don't think it works. And I'm like, yeah, I think it does. Let's go look at, and I said, let's go look at some of the reports. Have you ever run the student summary report? She's like, the what now? And I was like, well, let's go run the student summary report. And we pulled it up. And sure enough, this was a student who had literally every single assignment was done 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And that shows up. It shows you, adding whole numbers, adding whole numbers, adding whole numbers, and it should 1, 2, 3. And every single time it started off at like 4 minutes and then 90 seconds and then 30 seconds and then 0 seconds. And his time or his score increased over and over and over again. And I told this story one time and I got in trouble for using the word cheating. So I'm not going to say that he was cheating, but I am going to say he was taking advantage of the system. And that would be why the information was probably not sinking in. And she goes, oh, yeah, I think that'll do it. So that's my point to your question and which is, yeah, rinse and repeat, rote. Right. That's it.
And the reason I bring up my TANF students, I don't know about you guys, but mine are there all day long. Anybody else?
Oh yeah, they're 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day. Yeah.
They have to be there from 8 to 2:30. So they're with me at 5 days a week, 8 to 2:30. It sounds great. Well, yeah, it's hard. We need a break. Yes, so we do all kinds of breaks, but they don't know how to learn and they think that's how you learn. That I'm gonna go in and just, if I see it, but then I have some that actually write down the answers to the questions. And I'm like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
I like to take the practice test.
Yeah.
So I had to disable that feature and you would have thought my world crumbled. Oh my
Right.
gosh, it's not there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, hang on, just because I said I would get back to her, and yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Let's talk about the report. Yeah. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does it pop up in Excel? Because we don't have Excel on.
Hmm. Well, it'll give you, so it'll spit out a CSV file. It might be .xls, but it'll give you a file that you can open either in Sheets or no, it won't give you PDF. I don't believe it will be a spreadsheet. So you need some kind of software to look at that, right? Yeah, I feel you. I felt that one right here. No, because yeah, yeah. That's a good question. But it's if you have time over the next 3 days to stop by our booth, there's a number of us that I think we could probably come up with some ideas for that. But because you need that data to be able to talk to your students. Are you from Oklahoma? Because I feel like I've had this conversation. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
And so then, like, I tried going to the website and I feel like.
yeah. Mm, mm,
To
yeah. I think there's an opportunity to just I think we can probably find some short paths for you, but we need to do some hands-on. So if you can stop by the booth or at any time in the next 3 days, we could probably tackle that for sure. You had a question about,
student. So I can see when I run my student summary that a lesson, because you know how on Essential I said, this lesson probably take you about 25 minutes.
right, right.
I go and look at the student summary because I'm like, what's happening here? And they took an hour and 45 minutes and got a 62% or whatever.
Mhm.
So I know that they were online in the lesson for an hour and 45 minutes. I don't think that they were working that whole time.
Yes.
So how do you, I mean, what do you say to a student?
Yeah, so just the general question, and I'll be very curious if you all had feedback as well, but essentially, you have students spending way longer on assignments than they ought to. Why can be a different case for your, but what do you say in those?
I'd probably start having a conversation with them about, what's going on when you're working. Are they at home?
Yes.
Okay, what's going on at home? What's your environment when you're sitting down at the computer? Are your children around? Is your spouse, your significant other around? I'd ask about that, talking about their environment. And if they say no, it's just me and the computer, and I'm doing this the best I can, then I'd probably work through a lesson with them, sitting with them, and go, okay, let's look through this. Yeah. I mean, they come in, and that's the kind of things that we do to kind of get them back on track. We tell them, hey, you need to come in at least once a week if you're going to work from home. Or we talk to them on the phone. I have some really fabulous teachers. They're retired, and I'm just so thankful to have them. But they will talk to people over the phone from home to say, okay, where are your struggles? And let's talk this through as best we can. And sometimes I have to say, and this is where I feel like I've been in public speaking my whole life. I was an FFA nerd, if anybody knows FFA. Okay, so I feel like my communication skills have improved with age. And so I have those meaningful conversations where I say, hey, I care about you and what you're wanting to achieve here. Your goal is to graduate by May, right? And we have that conversation. Well, in order to do that, here's how I need you to work through this. And as an educator, I've always said, whatever you put in the bank, eventually you're going to need to ask to take it back out. And so we try really hard to establish those relationships up front so that I can have that awkward moment to say, I don't know that you're really attacking this in the way that you need to attack this so that it's successful for you. And of course, I've had those moments. It does not work out, and they're out the door because I offended them. But I have to have that, and I think it's all about that face to face. So I am old school, and then I want them to come in the building and meet with us as much as possible. But I do say, if you need to work from home, work from home. But then I've also had to do this, and this may be controversial. I kind of have to back them into a corner sometimes, and they don't literally do this, but they come out swinging. And so I have to say, hey, I'm only going to give you access to reading for right now because you're really wanting to hop around and this is not effective for you. We're just going to give you reading for now. And I had one lady, she was so mad at me. And like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, she passed the test. because I pushed her in that corner and said, "This is what you're going to work on." And now that doesn't always work. I'm not delusional, but I've noticed that philosophy that if I have to do that, I will, and it works. I don't like it though. That's not my personality. I don't know if you can tell. I'm a pretty positive person. I want to make sure people are enjoying themselves and wanting to learn, but yeah. So I'm sorry. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're watching a Netflix while this is just on.
Sometimes I've said that, but it depends on the relationship I have with them because my TANF students and I get real close. Like I've been invited to their births that close. You know what I mean? So we are close, but I have to say sometimes, hey, what you're doing is not working for you.
It's required through the judicial system that they spend X.
Yes. Yes. Being in. Yes. Okay. So you mentioned the I can't say that word right now. Judicial system. I have a lot of people who come in, sign up because the courts told them to be there. And that's either all I see, or they come back and they like to give me flack a little bit about, well, I can't be here because I have to do da 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 da. So yes, we have a lot of issues with that. I can't say that I'm totally successful with those scenarios because they have to want it. I grew up with a very and a pushy parents to say, you're going to succeed, you're going to succeed. And what I learned with my own children, 25 and 20 years old, that if I want it more than they do, is not going to work. Is not. So I've, with that in mind of what we're doing, yeah, if I want it more than they do, is not going to happen. So we have to talk about goals all the time. I don't always use the word goals, but I have to say, what are you working on? What do you want? Because I feel like goals turns them off sometimes. It's not as genuine. Sorry, I'm
No, you're good. You're good. Since we're so focused on self-directed learners, right? No matter what your approach is, your vehicle to get that done, self-directed, working on independent learning plans. I feel like your question is a pivotal one. What about when they're not making the progress that you expect them to make? And just like the question back there from Literacy KC, hi, Dr. Wendy, when she's, if they're not making the progress you expect them to make, what do you do then? How do you start that conversation? And then what's your next step? So because we have a room full of practitioners, I'm curious what your feedback is. What would you do if that was your student? What have you done? Because you've been in that position, I'm sure. So does anybody want to share what? Yeah.
American Youth Center Career Academy. And it's my first year there, and my background is actually special education. I have a lot of studying in special education, and so they brought me in on board as an interventionist. But this is a whole new world for me. I've learned, don't still have a year yet there, but I've learned a lot about NRS, CASAs, Aztec, Burlington, English, Essential Ed, which I use a lot for GED Academy, CASA's Goals Academy. And I have a student who has been really challenging for the academy overall. And this student is around 25 years old, African American, very sweet young man. And prior to coming to the academy, he actually does have a high school diploma, was identified as a student with special education needs. But his last reevaluation data that the student, the special ed coordinator just received it, was from 2017. And she hasn't yet made public to the staff, like the data stuff. But he's a student who has been really, it's been like a puzzle. How do we work with him? And he's in the college pathway. And at the academy, we have like a medical assistant pathway, IT pathway, GED pathway, college pathway. And then, you know, they have interventions. So tier 2, tier 3, and we got a lot of new people hired who are providing more ELL support. And for someone like him, he's also getting a lot more reading language arts support. So long story short, he's not making progress in CASAs. He's still stuck at a level 2. And I've had him a lot lot of the teachers don't use essential ed, even though the whole school has it, because their approach is more, oh, they're creating their own self-paced modules for the GED. I'm speaking more for the GED cohort because pretty much our focus is helping these students get their GEDs as fast as they can before they can move to other pathways. They have to have a GED or a high school diploma. In the event of this student, he was removed from the advanced English class, which is a required class for his college, because he couldn't, understand how to do claims, writing. His reading comprehension is at a grade level 2, even though he decodes beautifully at even at a high school level. He decodes not high school, 7th, 8th grade based on the adult reading inventory, ADRI. So he's comprehending at a level 2. And so here I am using CASA's goals with him, and it's just he's completing it and doing it with fidelity. He's not making any progress, 50%, 50%. When he's tested for CASA's level 2. So what I've done, they've removed him from the advanced English class. So he doesn't have a class. So he comes to the library where I do interventions with students, and I just been doing read works. I'm like, your focus is going to be reading comprehension. I think that, we need to work more on understanding what you're reading, and going back from the basics, from college and career readiness standards with Common Core state standards at a level 2, looking at writing questions, looking at vocabulary, looking at reading a passage at a grade level 2, Lexile of 530. So I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but he feels that is where he needs to be. And he picks his own passages from Read Works, but we haven't used Casa Schools Academy. We put that on hold, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but it's too complex. The wording of it is too complex. The vocabulary, it's above his head. So we're starting at that grade level. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing.
So I heard a lot of it. Tell me if what I heard a lot of say is you're diagnosing his needs and prescribing these are the areas that you need to work on, right?
Yes.
And I heard, so my colleagues here who also work for Essential Ed are all still teachers, and all like, yes, 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 yes. So I think that you are headed in the right direction. Yeah.
Are you trying to get him to pass his actual
Well,
pilot or GED
at the
test?
academy, every student who is at the academy has to exit the academy with a 6, and are at EFL 6. So he's at a 2, and he's been on a 2 since the beginning of this school year, and he's not making progress in reading. Math, he's at a 5. Reading, it's like, and so.
But what's the ultimate goal? Is he gonna receive the HSE?
Well, the ultimate goal is he wants to, he's in the college pathway. He started with IT. He does not benefit from online learning modules. The MOS certification is a requirement to go to community college, to do dual enrollment. Ultimately, he wants to work in the tourism industry. He really is fascinated with traveling around the world, so maybe becoming a flight attendant might be something that he
But
wants.
it's something that he really can do.
In terms of what, the flight
things that
attendant,
he's doing,
or-
the things that he's wanting to do, are they things that can he really do it?
Well,
Wanting to do it, but capability of doing it is different. And so the reason I was asking is like, are you trying to get him to actually test and take an official test? If he can, the only thing that the testing centers are going to offer is the screen reader, the additional time, and that's
Right.
kind of all that they're gonna be able to offer, because they don't offer like what you do on the actual test.
well,
Sure.
So are they going to test him to get an HSE?
well, right now,
Just the academy.
the leadership is working on his program placement. I'm just there to provide interventions on
Yeah.
what he needs. So I can't answer higher level questions because I'm not the manager, but he is really just a student who has been a puzzle. And so they know what the situation is. We're getting RSA involved, which is part of the Rehabilitation Services Administration for the district DC, because our school's a charter school in DC. So for employment preparation, so we're just trying to get him, at least get a job.
Right.
He already has a college and career readiness director who works with him, but while he's still in the academy, he has to, even though MOS might not be part of that college pathway that he's gonna be able to do, he at least needs to improve some of the basic readiness skills. So that's what
Well,
we're-
I'm gonna, yeah. So to kind of take us back to where, like, the lane that I think this all fits in is that who in here is a part-time adult ed teacher? Who in here gets paid the 5 or 6 hours a week to be the adult, to do your adult ed duties? Okay, who's a full-time adult ed? I get my 40 hours or whatever to be okay. Well, that's outstanding. That's great. A lot of folks that I end up working with are not. They're paid 5 to 6 hours a week. A lot of programs are like, you're going to teach for 5.5 of those hours, and you get 30 minutes to plan, prep, connect with students, grade, evaluate all the things, right? And so if we can lean on a self-directed platform of some kind, then it frees up the teacher to have those conversations. Whether you call them goals or not, it's going to make space to have those conversations. And so the question I had asked earlier was, what do you do when you have a student who you feel like might just be churning through the material purposefully or not, whether it's resonating or not? If you aren't burdened with 5 hours of instruction that your whole group instructing, no matter where your students are, you are now freed up to go work on a lesson one-on-one with your student. So what I found to be helpful, and just let me know if this is something that you all have tried. Whenever I had a student that they could not get over the bubble. Bless you. They could not make mastery in a certain area. I would sit down one-on-one with them, and if I didn't write my own lesson, we'd pull up Essential Ed and we'd walk through the lesson together. And I would just pause on a regular basis and say, tell me what you took away from that part of the instruction. Just see if you could give it back to me in your words. Let's go to the independent practice and you tell me what you think the first thing we should do is. Or here's a word problem. What's the first thing that jumps out at you? Bingo. So when you free up your time to do that, you're able to pick apart their problem solving, their critical thinking, and you can see those gaps in, like, oh, when we see this this math word problem, you just go straight to the numbers and assume you got to do adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. That's all we've got. So if I can sit down and have that conversation with them, almost kind of create a safe space for them to go, I actually have no idea what I'm doing, then I can build from that. But if I'm looking at a sea of 38 people, they don't want to raise their hand and say, I actually have no idea what I'm supposed to do, right? So if that, to me, in my opinion, is the biggest strength of using any individual, self-directed platform, is you're now unencumbered to do that. So I'm gonna just one more time put it back out there. We have a question in the back. Sure.
Hold on one second. They want to hear our questions. I will be the Bob Barker. Go.
Not Drew Carey.
Okay, I was just gonna add to what you were talking about. For me, I would modify the work and even have a conversation with him of how he learns. So that way, then you would know how to work with him for him to understand some of the work that you're trying to give him.
Thank you.
And something that Jen has pointed out multiple times is it's about treating every student individually, right? Not assuming that they're all going to come in and learn the same way in the same, and be successful in the same ways. It's treating them all individually. So culture of respect has been a huge impact that you said. I think something you've said over and over again is you've got to show respect to get respect, right? So just treating them like humans when they walk in the door with no preconceived notions. And then if you've listened to any of like Essential Ed's stuff, in particular when we talk about the anchors, the retention anchors, they talk, a key thing that shows up over and over is students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And, you know, we didn't coin that. I'm not, but we say it a lot, right? Yeah.
Was that we are feeling people, machines, and that think. And that really hit hard with me when I'm thinking about this whole piece is we've got to think about them as individuals and caring individuals, and this is how they feel about education, and then address the educational side of it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, switching that
Mhm.
is it about the cognition or more about the emotional side? And I think any of us in education know about Maslow and level 1, level 2, right? You're not going to hit those higher levels if all that other stuff is taken care of first.
Does anybody have any questions though? If you're fully basically the regular classroom style, do you have any questions about how it is different? You know, I mean, I feel like I'm just talking at you on what we do. Does anybody have any thoughts? Yeah.
I don't know if you want this now, but when you were talking about your program, I was kind of curious when you said you had the TANF ones that were required, what your population kind of looks like, or who's coming to you. Is it of your 200 students, are they all TANF, or like who the rest of the students are? Like how, I guess, and kind of just who comes to you, and then are they required or not required, and that sort of thing.
Okay, temporary assistance of needy families is what TANF stands for. So we have like a contract. Oklahoma has a contract with DHS, Department of Human Services, or OHS now. Sorry, my acronyms are bad. So those students are supposed to come to us every day for 6 hours a day, and I help work with them on their timesheets. That's how they make their daily amount. They also get paid a certain amount each month to be in the program. Anyway, that's a side note. So my TANF population is, I would say, relatively small in my numbers. Like I average 5 students that are TANF. Yeah, I don't have a lot, but the attention we give to those students is probably a lot more than I would say my other students. And then my other demographics, my 16, 17-year-old population has exploded. I have so many trying to come in. It's high school, it really is. And then I have a lot of students, I would say 20s and 30s, a few my age. And so I sit there and go, hey, we're the same age, you know, because I'm, you know, proud of those people. And so, but mainly, you know, 20, 30-year-olds. And we just stress that our atmosphere is for all, regardless of your age. So I don't want anybody to feel, and I'm just going to share this and I'll stop. When I first got the job, they would make people wear lanyards like I'm wearing now to go to the bathroom. I was like, no, these are adults. We're not doing that. So that whole
Part of the new ideas and help push out some of the more antiquated.
Yes, I was like, that's not what we're about. We're about making them feel comfortable to be here. So I feel like my 16 and 17-year-olds, I have to be a really strict educator, but everybody else, we're just so glad they're there. And we tell them that every day they walk in. We're so glad to see you. Thank you for coming in. And we mean that. So, yeah.
Follow up to that, on your 16 to 17-year-olds, does that count for them being in as an alternative to being in the high school classroom? Y'all's program does? Because we've gotten a lot of questions of that. Like, we're rural, so when you said that rural, but we're very small, just getting started, and we're more of a prep class to help them then go take the GED. We're not a program where it counts as an alternative to their high school.
I say alternative to high school. So they have to sign out of high school to be in my program. And I'm like, you have to be here every day. I try to make it as much high school as I possibly can in that sense. But yes, and trying to make sure they understand you got to come into class. Now, they don't come 6, 7 hours a day, no, but I'm trying to make sure that they're there so that we can get them to graduate. We are considered an alternative program, not necessarily a high school, even though my technology center is a high school setting. You know, it's juniors and seniors in high school and some adults. So we kind of look like a high school, but we're not. So they're considered adults. They need to come to school as much as possible. And I could really go off on a tangent that if they don't come to school and they get dropped from my program, there's no follow-up. And I don't like that. I wish Oklahoma had a more strict policy on that, that we could at least say, okay, they're gone. They're not in class anymore, but there's not. So yeah, I feel like Oklahoma needs to follow that process a little bit better, but they don't. Yes, if they're in good standing. I've had some that I've had to say, no, I'm sorry, this program is not for you, because it was, I mean, I actually have a panic button in my room in case of an emergency. Yeah, we've had some gang related situations where we were like, oh, this is not a good place right now. So, but most of the time they're in good standing and they can come back and pick right back up where they left off. And so that's what I want for them, because they're making bad choices and I'm trying to, hopefully they'll get back on track.
I do want to ask a question to y'all. So, you know, one of the big changes in Jen's program is moving away from Sage on the stage. We all come in, whole group lesson. That's our main focus, and really moving to this more office hours type approach. For those of you who also do a self-directed approach in your program, do you have a similar setup where it's just students come in at any point in the week to put in their time, or are they still assigned to a teacher that monitors their progress and they do the check-ins? What does self-directed look like in your programs? I found the thing.
So what we've been doing is we have like a required class time, set hours that the students can pick from. Like we have a couple options for them. So for face-to-face instruction, it's a long day. It's 5 hours, but part of it is there's instructors up there instructing in, you know, all of the subjects. They kind of teach at a lower level and then teach again at a higher level. And then they have about a 45-minute to an hour for each subject where students can do self-paced work. So we're looking at their NRS scores, or we're looking at their TABE scores and placing them in curriculum. And then we're also looking at practice tests that they've taken on GED.com and placing them in curriculum based on those scores as well. So we're utilizing both.
Yeah. Who else has a self-directed program, and what's your approach? Jared, is it okay if I? Sure. Our local program here in the Dallas area.
Yeah, we actually have both. So we have distance learning as well. And so then we have, with Denton County, which is just east of here, but we're here local, but just, yes, east of Dallas. And so we have remote learning and then distance learning. And so what we do is we have students that we say 2 hours on Tuesdays, 2 hours on Thursdays, or we have Monday, Wednesdays, morning or evening sessions. And so it's still them showing up, because a lot of our students are full-time. Like they're working full-time, and so they have lives. And so we're trying to help them move on with life, as you understand. And so we have both. And so we are now using Essential Ed basically 95% of the time in the classroom. And so I've had some students say, well, why do I need to show up? Why can't I just do this by myself at home? And so we do have some remote learning, but what I tell them is you still have that teacher who is your accountability. And I have some other lesson plans built in, like life application lessons, but they need somebody to show up for. And they need a motivator. They need a mentor. And so if they don't, they're at their house, their kids are bothering them, or there's distractions all the time. And so they're going to find a reason not to work. And so if we say, hey, give me 4 hours a week, you have somebody, you show up to a classroom, they're there, they can help you. Yes, you're doing online, but that gives you that accountability. And so when I frame it for them that way, they then go, oh, you're right. Because if I'm at home, my husband's asking me to do this, my kids are asking me to do this, I'm going to go outside, do yard work. So they're going to get distracted. So I said, this is 4 hours where you've carved this out. So now you show up, you do your work. And so that really helps. And so when I do that, then they say, okay, well, I'm going to show up to class. But if they can't, then we have the remote learning. And so same thing, the cameras need to be on at all times. And so I had some teachers and students who they wouldn't have their cameras on. And I was like, we don't know if you're there. And even my teachers weren't doing it. And so I was like, hey guys, you gotta have your cameras on. And so now they do. And so they have to lead the class. The students see my teacher's there, they're present. I can ask them any questions in the chat or live, whatever. And so then they have their cameras on as well. Now they may be eating hot Cheetos or something else. It's okay. It's good. It's fine. You're still there, you're present, and you're working. And so that way they're still there. They've carved out that time, but they're still in their house as well. And so that has been successful, but it's all about how you frame it. If you just say, oh, it's an online curriculum, you can do it. It's not going to work for them. I mean, they come to us for a reason. They didn't make it in traditional K through 12 for a reason. And so does that help to answer the question?
Like when I pick up you, Jared,
4 hours a week.
Jen was talking about her teacher Rebecca. There's positivity. There's positivity. There's goal setting. There's accountability, right? And you use the word mentor. I think that's a huge shift, right? And to become mentors for our students can be, I think, the change that helps them get over the hurdle. Because right, they didn't make it through K-12 for one reason or another. Carol, could I pick on you for just a moment to share just a snapshot of what it looks like for you and Ladon? Because you do this, but you do it remotely. So I know that some of us are trying to figure that part out. And then I think we've got all of 2 minutes, and then we're supposed to cattle herd on around. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so LaDawn and I, and she slipped out back there. We teach what I like to call face-to-face over Zoom, and he's absolutely right. That kind of class does not work unless cameras are on and you can verify your students' attendance and attention, because their home life can be chaotic. They have to be able to focus, and the only way you can tell if they're really there is if the cameras are on. So we do live instruction. We've carved out the 5 subjects. We have a designated time block for each subject. Our students are required to attend the live lessons for the subjects they have not yet passed on GED or HiSET. We encourage them to attend the full 3 hours. And if they're not in a live class, guess what they're doing? They're working in essential ed. We put them in a breakout room. LaDawn joins our meetings with 4 or 5 computers so she can monitor different breakout rooms. We can tape test that way. We can do whatever we need to do, but we encourage them to give themselves that accountability. Show up, be present, ask questions. And I have the best formative assessment I've ever found is the chat in Zoom. I set it up so that only I can see their answers. They can't chat each other. We do a lesson, they're sending me their answers. I see a name, I see an answer. It's really easy, especially with multiple choice. I can see who's getting it and who's not. I can even tell how confident they are by how fast the answers come in. If I get rapid fire right answers, we've got that. We're moving on. If it's slower, about 50% right, and we haven't got that yet, I can redirect and I can teach it differently. And if I see students who, most of the class have mastered it, but some haven't, I can follow up with them. I've got a pad, I'm making notes. But that's what our class looks like. And it's been very successful. I used to wonder if that format could be as successful as an in-person class, and we've seen that it can be. We're fully online. We're fully online. I'm in Indiana. LaDawn's in Utah. So yeah, we make it work, and we have students. It's increased our enrollment because we have students from all over Indiana. because there aren't that many options like that. In fact, I think we're the only ones in Indiana who do it the way we do. So we've collected students from far and wide in Indiana. Central 9, just south of Indianapolis. Yes, we do all 5 subjects. I am. Yes. And we have people visit our online class. So yes, come talk to me if you're interested in that. We'd love to help you. We'd love to have you visit us. I'll be there 12:30 to 5.
And or Ladon should be at the booth if you want to come pick apart their really unique and yet also very successful way of doing things. I apologize that we're 2 minutes over and you have a half a mile walk down. So I'm going to hang out here in case you want to have questions. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here.